The air in the upstairs hall was syrupy, slow like the whole house was holding its breath. I pressed my palm to the door. It pulsed with a warmth that shouldn't have been there. My childhood bedroom, flooded with moonlight, flickered at the edges, as if something massive was just out of sight, pushing against the walls from the inside. From downstairs came the relentless tick-tick-tick of the hallway clock, but I could hear whispering too. A chorus of familiar voices chanting my name, over and over and over, winding tighter, Kara, 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 until I pressed my hands over my ears and still, they slithered through, burrowing in. When I finally opened my eyes, the walls were covered in photographs, but all the faces were turned to watch me, mouths open, eyes wide. Something in the house had woken up, and it wanted me to return. They say memory is a house you never really leave. I always believed that with my family, home was a place you ran from, not back to. But the truth is stranger. My name is Kara. I'm 30 now, a careful person with no patience for drama, or so I thought. This is not a story about money, or even betrayal. This is a story about the way a family can remake a person quietly, relentlessly, until you don't know where they stop and you begin. It started with a knocking in my chest, in the walls. An echo at first. I'd spent the night twisted in my childhood bed. The familiar smells of plastic binders and old wood pressed up against my face. Sleep was impossible. Beneath my pillow, my phone vibrated. Over and over, distant voices worming through my dreams. When I finally slipped from the house just before dawn, it felt less like leaving and more like being expelled. I didn't pack a suitcase. I took only what I could carry: my backpack, ID, grandmother's envelope, and left before the world woke. The moment I crossed the threshold, something changed. The heaviness hanging over the house seemed to curl tighter behind the door, as if it was disappointed to see me go. I drove until my shoulders unlocked. The Pennsylvania suburbs are lined with identical houses, yards trimmed into submission, all of them hiding something. I pulled off at an empty Shell station to wash my face, looking in the mirror for proof I was still real. My own reflection stuttered. For a flicker, someone else's eyes stared back at me, wet, shining with need, but when I blinked, I was alone. By the time the sun rose, guilt was blooming. I could hear my parents' voices, rehearsed and warm as sawdust, explaining to relatives how I'd abandoned them. I tried to ignore it. I focused on the engine's vibration, the lines of the road. My heart slammed with every passing sign, a private Morse code. I told myself I was free, but freedom is a strange animal. That afternoon, sitting in a cafe an hour from home, I found a note folded into my jacket pocket. I hadn't written it. The handwriting was spidery familiar. Come back. We miss you. You know you can't run. My chest went cold. I scanned the room, nobody I knew. But there, just out of sight, something waited. That was the first warning. I wasn't alone. And I'd never truly left. You can pretend you don't hear the whispers behind your back. But what if they start following you down empty streets? What if they slip into your private thoughts, twist your memories, and turn your lifeline into a leash? Kara thought she could outdrive her family's reach, but the shadows she left behind are already closing in. What would you do if your past started hunting you? That night, I checked into a rundown motel off Route 6, one of those places that smells like bleach and faded secrets. The TV played static, and the fluorescent bathroom light flickered overhead, strobing the cracked tiles like a heartbeat. It was only then, alone, that I dared open the envelope Grandma had given me all those months ago. Her writing calm, unhurried, for your future. Her scent lifted from the paper, a fugitive sweetness, coffee and lavender. For a few minutes I let myself believe I was safe, that she built a wall between me and them. But safety is just the absence of evidence. At 2:13 a.m. my phone powered on by itself despite being switched off. My lock screen was different, a photo I'd never taken, of my whole family at dinner, but with my seat empty, the chair turned away. I froze. The device heated up, burning my hands. Then it chimed, a voicemail, no number, just static at first. Then my mother's voice, but wrong, her words oozing. Family is everything. Come home. Or we'll come for you. I didn't sleep. When the sun rose, I drove north, hands white-knuckled, checking my rear view every 10 seconds. Was I being followed? Rational thought warred with something deeper, panic, old obedience. I called Eleanor, my grandmother, her voice a lifeline. Come here, she said. I've been waiting. Her house in Massachusetts was dusk even at noon, shutters drawn. The old trees pressing close, wind moaning along the clapboards. The moment I stepped inside, relief washed over me, heavy and numbing. Eleanor watched me with ancient eyes. She smelled of lemons and old paper. "It's starting," she murmured, as if she'd been tracking a storm nobody else could see. We sat at her kitchen table, silence thick as stew. I told her everything, the threats, the note, the shifting shadows. At moments her face twisted, not with fear but with recognition. "They taught you to accept less than you deserve so you'd never leave," she said softly. "But there's an older hunger in that house. It's never satisfied, is it?" Before I could answer, the lights flickered, and the walls groaned a low, aching sound like someone trapped behind them, clawing to escape. My phone buzzed. A no-caller ID. Against reason, I answered. Static. Then a man's voice, my father's? Hollow echoing. "You can run, Kara, but you can't take what belongs to us with you." The call cut out. The kitchen clock stuttered, the hands spinning backward. Eleanor reached for my hand with trembling fingers. "You're safe for now," she whispered. "But it knows you're here." And when she said it, she wasn't just talking about my parents. That night, sleep brought only one dream. The house, breathing, shuddering, hungry. Its windows were eyes, its doors mouths. Inside, my family, beckoning, their hands all reaching, stretching, growing, until the whole house was nothing but arms dragging me back. I woke up gasping, fingernails bleeding where I'd gripped my own arm. Eleanor was already up, brewing coffee. "You remember more than you want to," she said. "And it remembers you. What if memory itself is a trap?" In the safety of Eleanor's kitchen, Kara hopes the past can't reach her, but the house she fled isn't finished. Old cycles want blood, and the line between memory and haunting is blurring fast. When the calls come from inside your own head, how do you escape? In the following days, the air in Eleanor's house changed, growing heavier, colder, like the world was holding its breath. Shadows collected in the corners, pooling under furniture, slithering up the walls at night. I tried to brush it off, new surroundings, old nerves, but even Eleanor's calm began to rip at the edges. The first real sign was the mirrors. On the third morning, as I washed up, my reflection began to lag behind, my mouth moved. But the image didn't follow for a count, then caught up in a shudder. I stepped back, hitting the sink. All at once, the room felt too small. I grabbed the edge of the counter, whispering her name. "Eleanor." She appeared in the doorway, her face drawn tight. "It's in the house now," she said, meaning more than the echo. Mail began arriving, addressed to me, envelopes in my parents' handwriting, but the paper was somehow wrong, yellowed, brittle at the edges, smelling faintly of mildew and something burnt. Inside, family photos that had never existed. Pictures of our house, but empty. The windows smudged as if something had tried to crawl out. No notes, no explanations. Each day more arrived, piling up on the kitchen table. I began to see things from the corners of my eyes. Movement in the window glass, crawling shadows under the bed, the subtle rearrangement of objects when I left the room, as if the house was testing what I noticed. Eleanor watched me closely. She began smudging the doors with salt, her murmurs mingling with the sound of the wind. One evening, I found her in the basement, standing before a wall covered with my childhood photographs, photos I didn't remember being taken, all of them slightly wrong. Faces too pale, smiles too wide, eyes that seemed to glisten in the low light. "They send these to remind you," Eleanor said, "who you're supposed to be." The phone calls grew more frequent. Sometimes it was static, sometimes it was laughter, Jake's, my brother's, echoing, cruel. It always ended with a voice that was mine but not, whispering, "Come home. You belong here. You always have." Then, late one stormlit night, the kitchen table drawer suddenly slammed open. Inside, a stack of letters addressed to Kara, our perfect girl. But as I touched them, blood smeared across the envelope, fresh and warm. The smell made me gag. Outside, a figure moved beneath the porch light, my mother. Face hollow, mouth stretched in a silent wail. I ran to the door, heart thudding, but when I flung it open, the porch was empty. All that remained was a single trail of muddy, child-sized footprints leading straight to the house. That was when I understood. I wasn't just being watched. I was being invited back or deeper in. And both choices were deadly. When your own blood calls to you, do you answer? Or do you run? With walls closing in and reality bending, Kara has to face a question more terrifying than any ghost. What if love was always a trap in family, The snare beneath her feet? Something is coming for her now, and running won't be enough. That night, the storm thrashed, peeling branches off the ancient oaks outside Eleanor's house. Rain battered the windows, rattling glass as if demanding to be let in. Eleanor and I locked the doors, drawing chairs against them in a ritual both desperate and absurd. As midnight spread, the house groaned, the pipes shuddering with unseen pressure. The phone began to ring over and over, frantic, insistent. On the seventh ring, Eleanor grabbed it, listened, and went pale. She handed the receiver to me. "Listen," she mouthed. Static. Then, all at once, the line cleared and I heard it. Not just my parents and Jake, but every voice from my entire childhood, stacked atop each other in a monstrous choir. They chanted over and over, "Family first. Family always. Family forever." But buried inside was another voice, ancient, deeper. It vibrated the bones of my jaw. "You are ours. You carry us inside you. Submit." I dropped the phone, breath shredded, limbs numb. Eleanor seized both my hands. "They think if they break you here, they can have you forever." Her grip was iron. "But you can fight." Suddenly, every light in the house burst, plunging us into darkness. The temperature crashed, breath turning to frost. Something pounded up the stairs, heavy, purposeful. The kitchen clock began spinning, hands peeling back time. I remembered the feeling from the day I'd left home. The sense of being gently, mercilessly suffocated, the unyielding force that shapes bones and silences daughters, all wrapped in the name of love. The pounding stopped outside the kitchen door. My father's voice, thick with sorrow. "Kara, we only want what's best. Give it back. Come home. Be who you're meant to be." I whispered, "I won't," but my voice came out as someone else's. I felt them inside me, regrets, resentments, endless hunger. I saw Jake at the window, pounding until his hands smeared red. My mother crawled across the floor, body folding in impossible shapes, hissing my name. Eleanor screamed, "You are not theirs. You are not theirs." Suddenly, the drawer with the letters flew open. Every envelope inside was burning. Smoke curled through the kitchen, bringing with it a scent I remembered. My childhood home, late-night arguments, birthday cake gone stale, the acid tang of fear. The walls themselves seemed to flex, breathing, ribs creaking. Shadows spun and tangled, my family's faces flickering through, mouths wide, teeth sharp. I heard the truth then, as clear as the storm. Asterisk, you never left. We are inside you. We always will be. Asterisk. Eleanor grabbed me as the kitchen split with a crack, electricity fizzing, every photograph on the wall peeling off and falling into the darkness beneath. And in that moment I understood. The family curse wasn't just their need. It was inside me, the seed they'd planted, watered, and called love. Kara's greatest battle has never been with her family, but with the part of herself molded by them, haunted, hungry, desperate for approval. As shadows pour through the cracks in the world, is it still possible to escape what's been written into bone and blood? When home finally comes calling, will she survive breaking the cycle, or become just another ghost in her family's endless house? Smoke thickened, burning my throat. The house shuddered. I clung to Eleanor as frantic shadows lunged from the walls, faces contorted, hands grasping. Every voice I'd ever obeyed stabbed through my thoughts. "We need you. Don't be cruel. You're our good girl." "No." My own voice, hard, clear, cutting through the din. The air vibrated, a pulse that rattled the old glass. The burning letters on the table flared and turned to ash, spinning upward in a cyclone. Through the chaos, Eleanor shouted words I barely understood, a prayer, a curse, a plea. The walls pressed close, crowding us. Shadows stretched into grotesque imitations of my family, their mouths sucking in light. I saw Jake's eyes, wild and frightened. My mother's tears slicked the floor. My father's rage hammered at the bones of the house. They begged, threatened, wept, promised. All the strategies old as blood. But beneath it all, a howl rose. Fury, grief, a hunger for control. The thing that generational parasite fed on daughters who wouldn't run. On sacrifices wrapped in love. Must always have one. And if I didn't break free, I would become its next willing host. Eleanor's grip faltered. "You must choose," she gasped. "Let them in or shut the door forever." The house groaned, floorboards buckling as if something massive and invisible was trying to step through. My skin prickled, something inside me stretching, begging for surrender. I thought of every birthday, every smile feigned, every family first whispered in the dark. I looked at Eleanor, her eyes alive with fire, with hope. I remembered who I was, who I'd never been allowed to be. I am not your keeper, I said, voice the color of bone. I am not your forgiveness. I am not your legacy. A flood of screams, rage, grief, love turned weaponized. The windows burst open. The wind shrieked through, carrying the ashes of every burned letter into the night. The shadows convulsed and then, all at once, receded. They fled through splintered walls, slithered down into the earth, shrinking at the edge of Eleanor's kitchen. Silence slammed down. Lights flickered back to life. The air was raw, scorched, hollow. Eleanor slumped in her chair, exhausted. I collapsed at her side. Morning came gray and empty. The mail was gone. The old photographs blank. My phone lay on the table, finally dead. Out the window, Massachusetts sunlight crept through the trees. I knew then that the house I'd fled could rage and twist in 100 ways, but I did not have to carry its story forward. They would never stop calling. But I could choose not to answer. Eleanor squeezed my hand, her gaze clear. You broke the ritual, she whispered. It ends with you. But I still sleep lightly. Some nights when the clock ticks wrong, I wake to find family photos on the table, faces turned away. Shadows cluster under the glass. And I hear it, always soft and coaxing. Kara, come home. Come home. Come home. But I never do. Not again. Even the strongest chains look like love from inside the cage until you feel how deep they've carved into your bones.